Audacious Rebel. In the first season of The Path of the Audacious Rebel, we focused on crime and explored all dimensions of crime. We tried to identify whether it's a symptom of something deeper, if it's a cause which perpetuates further crime, as we sought to get to the very root of this global scourge. We had some remarkable guests from all around the globe that shared some diverse perspectives and insight into that topic. But in this season, season two, we're going to explore even deeper. And before we begin, I want to invite you to take a breath, not just of air, but of awareness. Because what we're about to enter is much more than a remembering, it's a reclaiming, a resurrection of the soul. Beneath all the programming, it's a realignment to the original frequency before what I would call our distortion. It's a reawakening of truth that was never truly lost, but buried, hidden. You may not agree with everything that is about to be shared in this season. You may not understand everything. But I ask you this, don't rush to label it. Sit with it. Let it sit with you, because the world you see is not the world that is. And who you think you are may only be a shadow of what you've actually forgotten. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, a place of paradox, a place of rhythm and rich diversity. My mother was East Indian and my father was of African descent. I always looked at it as two rivers, the Ganges and the Nile, flowing through one body, two cultures, two nations, India and Africa, living inside one soul. Being a traditional East Indian, my mother knew all the Hindu practices and rituals. However, she was not a Hindu. You know, thinking about it, I honestly didn't know what she was. She loved East Indian movies, which is what we all had to look at on Sunday. I mean, we had one television at home, and at that time in Trinidad, there was only one channel. So no one had a choice. We all would look at East Indian movies on Sundays. And she would hum Hindu melodies, or what you call bhajans, softly as she moved about the house. Even though I didn't know what the language was and what did some of the things she was saying, you could have actually felt the emotions. Sometimes she would take me to some of these religious events like the Ramayana. This is where the pundits recited or sang Hindu scriptures while playing the harmonium. Most of the times I'll fall asleep to these classical Hindu melodies at these events. But you could actually feel the sacredness of these events. Our neighbors to the north of us were the Ramnanans. And they were devoted Hindus. As I said in my book, The Third Testament, every morning without fail, Mr. Ramnanan would be going to his temple to pray and doing his rituals as is outlined in Hindu tradition. They had this temple in their yard, in their front yard, and every year they would conduct prayers, something known as puja. This is done yearly. I looked forward for this as a child because there would be a lot of children there, a lot of kids, because a lot of family from all over would come. So I would have friends to play with, but that never took away from the sacredness of the ceremonies. The smell of the incense, the pundit blowing the conch shell, the ringing of the bell. Just speaking about this now, I actually can be in that place. I can still experience it mentally as if it was yesterday. To the right of us, there were Muslims, the Asgaralis. Right down the street were the Khans. Around the corner, you had Christians from every imaginable sect. You had Baptist neighbors, Orisha, Spiritual Baptist, Shango, Seventh day Adventist, Jehovah Witness. I attended a Presbyterian school, then a Catholic school. So, what I'm trying to say was my childhood was a living mandala of spiritual identities. And in the midst of that vibrant diversity, one question started burning inside of me. One question I had constantly based on this experience I was having as a child. And that question was, if there is one God, why are there so many parts? Why do they seem to be so different? And why do they seem to divide more than to unite? Not only did that question haunted me for years, but I would think it became the compass for my soul. But the story doesn't stop with religion, because I was also exposed to something that shattered every boundary of logic. Something that didn't make sense to me scientifically, contrary to what I identify reality to be. I don't even think someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson may be able to explain this. There was this man I was often around. He was a friend to the family, but he was what you call a local healer, a medium, a kind of shaman of sort. Many in today's world may call him what you would call a magician. And I'm not talking about someone who does card tricks and stuff and illusionary things. No. This gentleman was a friend of the family. And some of the things that I personally witnessed, which he did, had me questioning everything about reality itself. But not only that, it served as a driving force, and it placed in me a sort of a perpetual pursuit for meaning and for understanding, because I always trying to understand what was this, or how was he able to do this. I saw sick people who doctors all around the world had given up on, came to him in wheelchairs with walking sticks, couldn't walk properly, and left totally upright without walking stick, without even needing a wheelchair. I saw people come to him having issues, let's say, with their leg, and I would have seen with my own eyes various objects like nails, iron nails, steel nails, needles being pulled out from their bodies, different parts of their bodies, even from their head. Things were taken out, physical things that these people would have claimed being to hospitals, being x-rayed, and nothing would have been identified in the x-ray machines. But here I am seeing real physical nails, and I'm telling you, this was not an illusion, this is not a metaphor. I'm talking about real objects extracted from real flesh, without surgery, without blood. I watched what medical institutions had given up on, healed by something invisible, something ancient. And at that time, I knew, even as a child, there must be more to this world than what we have been told. That moment, that period of time, planted some serious questions inside of me that would grow into a lifelong search. Not just to believe, but to understand. I began reading, not like the average student, but like a seeker. I read the entire Bible from cover to cover. I was about 12, 13 years old at the time. The Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, the Upanishads. I explored Kemet, the Sumerians, read the Gilgamesh epics, the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, the tablets of Adapha, the Emerald tablets, various Hermetic texts, the Gnostic Gospels, and the list goes on. I then turned to science. I studied biology, chemistry, neuroscience, epigenetics, quantum physics, as well as various spiritual modalities like Reiki, SRT, which is spiritual response therapy, Psyche, psychological kinesiology, and more. You know, the way I studied, you would swear, you would have sworn I had examinations or my life depended on it because this is how I felt about what I was doing. I sat with so much spiritual men, priests, like Hindus, pundits. I wanted to see if the ancient and the modern could speak to each other. If science and spirituality are one and the same. And what I found was astonishing. Everything was saying the same thing, just in different languages. There seems to be like a code, a sort of pattern, a design that everything is connected, both the tangible and the intangible. I recognize that the universe is very intelligent, that the human being is not just a body, but we are like a bridge, that we are divine technology, but we seem to have forgotten what we are somewhere along the way. But here's the root of it all. This is what I discovered. I discovered that the greatest issue that we are facing in life today is not any disease, not COVID and any virus. It is not climate change, what's happening environmentally. It is not crime. It is not economics and capitalism. The greatest issue that we are facing in life today is ignorance. Not ignorance of facts, but ignorance of self. Not lack of data, but lack of depth. We simply do not know what we are. And because of that, we have accepted definitions, labels, systems, and structures that do not reflect our true essence. We pursue goals that is contrary to the essence of what life is itself. We have forgotten the first maxim written at the Temple of Delphi in Greece, which is, man, know thyself, and you shall know the gods and the universe. This ignorance of self is not just personal, it's a sort of civilizational thing, it's societal. And until we correct the root, every branch of society will remain misaligned. The best way I can put this is to say that we've built a world on broken blueprints. And until we reclaim our original design, until we identify our true nature, we will keep repeating the same dysfunction in different forms. And this is what this season of the part of the Audacious Rebel is about. It's not just about information, but revelation. It's not just content, but context. It's not new answers I'm bringing here. You know, it is written that nothing is new under the sun. But this is ancient truths, resurrected truths that seem to have been concealed or hidden, which I believe was done intentionally so as to prevent us from ever walking in the full capacity of what we truly are. You know, there's so many systems that govern society, systems that we've built on, forgetting that we need to understand that society itself is a mirror and it reflects not only the consciousness of the people in it, but it reflects the consciousness of the people who built it, who put this together. If people are disconnected from their true essence of what they are, won't the systems they create be just as fragmented? Think about it. If we were to reflect historically, what do you think the foundation of all empires, kingdoms, and governments are built upon? Will you think some sort of divine alignment? No, empires, kingdoms, governments were all built on conquest, on fear, on trauma. Entire civilizations were wiped out, from Babylon to Rome, from colonial Europe to the modern superpowers. The foundation has always been domination, not harmony. This is our foundation. This is our roots. Our roots were fractured, broken. And if such is the state of the root, what do you think would be the quality of the fruit? All modern civilizations or governments are run by system. You know, you have the health system, you have the education system, you have the political structure, you have entertainment, you have the media, all aspects of what makes up government. It's run by systems. If we are to examine each of these systems, we would see how fundamentally flawed they all are, which would mean that we could never attain our greatest ideals using these systems as the GPS, as the guide. Let's look at the education system, for instance. I call it the mind without the soul. Our education system teaches us what to think, not how to know. Its focus is on memory, not its focus is on retention and regurgitation. Education is more about standardization over self-discovery. Children are taught facts, but not meaning. We are given answers, but not purpose. We graduate with diplomas, but have no inner compass or value system. We have master's degrees, but no self-mastery. We are trained to survive the system and to fit into it, but not to transform it. But historically, when you look at education, when you look at the indigenous and spiritual cultures, it was always a holistic thing. Not only did it engage the minds, but the heart and the spirit. And when you reflect on the mystery schools of Egypt, students spent years preparing for initiation. When you look at the Gurukuls of ancient India that taught cosmic laws alongside daily discipline, you will recognize that learning was a very sacred thing. Today we've traded wisdom for certification. And in doing so, we've produced intellect without insight. So we have tools in the hands of fools and a lot of square pegs in circular holes. That was just education. Let's look at religion. Doctrine without direct experience. Religion should have been a bridge, but in many cases it has become a wall. The core mystical truths of unity, of divinity within, and liberation were buried deep beneath rituals and fear. We worship symbols, but we have forgotten essence. We memorize doctrine, but we miss transformation. And so we fought wars over names. Instead of becoming the presence, those names pointed to it. You know, from the Council of Nicaea to the Inquisitions to the caste-driven priesthoods of India, from the Brahmins to the Dalits, just division and separation. Much of organized religion was designed to gatekeep. It was designed to prevent the masses from ever attaining divine access, from never walking in the fullness of what we actually are. The great mystery of in the book of Colossians 1:27 spoke about Christ being within you. Now, Christ has become a total externalized thing. The Atman became lost beneath ritual repetition. The prophet's message of compassion became legalism. And where there should have been mystical union, we see control. That's just religion. And I'm just skirming these things. We're not really getting into the depths of it, but I hope you're recognizing what I'm trying to say. Let's look at health, the health system. The human body is fragmented where the health system is concerned. We see the body as a machine, not a vessel of energy, of emotion and memory. We treat symptoms, but never even try to understand why the suffering began in the first place. We separate mental health from spiritual disconnection and physical pain from emotional trauma, failing to see that all is connected to each other. And so we live in a world that is medicated but never healed. Again, on reflection of ancient systems like Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, African spiritual healing, the body was treated as a web of life where everything was connected with thought, spirit, organs were inseparable. It was not a fragmented body. The Western medical model removed the soul from the human anatomy. Now we have advanced machines, but no map for the human spirit. And I could go into so much where the health system is concerned. Let's look at politics. When we look at politics, what we have is power without principle. Whether we call it democracy, socialism, or communism, what we often see, in spite of what is the label, is the same hierarchical structure. Different labels, but same hierarchical structure, where the masses is given the illusion of choice beneath the reality of control. Power is concentrated at the top and people is silenced at the bottom. Systems not built on wisdom, but on manipulation, on fear, on exploitation. We argue between the left and the right, between the red and the blue, between the yellow and the red. But the truth lies in the consciousness that builds the structure. Throughout history, Plato's philosopher kings became emperors, Caesar became divine, and democracy became mob. Mob rule filtered by oligarchy. Even the noble intentions of post-revolution states give way to bureaucracy, surveillance, and war. We need to understand that a system cannot be more conscious than the minds that built it. Let me repeat that. A system cannot be more conscious than the minds that built it. If we examine the economic system, let's look at economics. What we have is profit over purpose. The financial system is built on scarcity. It's built on separation. It teaches us that our value is based on productivity. It's based on profit. It's based on what we possess. We hoard while we see others starving. We are conditioned to consume endlessly, not to create meaningfully. Debt is normalized. Abundance is taboo. We've mistaken currency for worth. From the ancient Babylonian lending practices to the rise of global banking under colonial expansion, wealth has too often meant the ability to extract, not the ability to elevate. I mean, look at Adam Smith's theory of free market growth. Ignore the question of spiritual or moral equilibrium. True wealth is health. True wealth is creativity. True wealth is your time and your connection. But we were taught otherwise. When we look at the entertainment system or the media, our perception is being engineered. We need to understand that our minds are shaped not by what we study, but by what we consume daily. And the media feeds us fear. The media feeds us distraction and division. entertainment, what we call recreation. I learned to spell it now with a W. I don't spell recreation with an R. I spell it with a W. WRECK, because it is wrecking creation. When you look at recreation and entertainment, it often glorifies violence. It numbs your emotion. It makes you callous, and it commodifies pleasure. And we wonder why we're anxious. We wonder why we're restless and disconnected. From the Roman gladiator arenas to today's algorithm-driven social feeds, entertainment has long served as bread and circus. It's a way to pacify the masses and program our perceptions. You see, when reality is crafted through screens, the inner world is lost. These systems isn't flawed by accident. This is how they were designed, from a place of fragmentation, and it was intentional as far as I'm concerned. And so they function perfectly. They function perfectly to keep us fragmented and to keep us disconnected. It's like putting regular fuel in a vehicle designed for diesel. We keep feeding ourselves concepts and routines and institutions that are incompatible with what we truly are. And that's why they don't satisfy us. That's why we could never heal. That is why we feel this perpetual void, this continuous emptiness, no matter how full our schedules, no matter how full our bank accounts, no matter what we do, there's this perpetual emptiness. We still feel the same way in spite of what we have. And it will be like this until the foundation is restored, until we remember, until we reclaim, until we realign. We will continue to reproduce broken systems in more advanced forms. And that is the price of forgetting. We have now exposed the roots of the crisis. We have peeled back the layers and seen the blueprint of a world built on spiritual forgetfulness. But the goal is not despair. The goal is revelation. Because if we could build all of this from disconnection, imagine what we could do from a place of truth. What comes next is not just a critique of the past. It is a call to restore the future, to rebuild society, not from fear, but from divine knowledge, to realign our inner world so our outer world can reflect it. And so now we enter the next phase, what I call the path of restoration. Because if ignorance is the disease, then awareness must be the medicine. Not just any awareness, it must be sacred, embodied, and integrated awareness that reconnects us with the original design of our being. You see, we cannot reform what we do not understand. We cannot transform systems while remaining misaligned within. As such, restoration would not begin with any laws or policy. We don't need no G4 summit. What we need is conscious individuals, awakening one by one, realigning from within. Where do we start? First, self-knowledge. Self-knowledge must be the foundation. We must reflect on that maxim from Delphi. It wasn't just poetry, it was a blueprint where it said, "Man, know thyself, and you shall know the gods and the universe." To know oneself is to peel away the false layers, is to peel away that ego, labels, the programming, and access the eternal architecture within. Is to understand the chakras, sacred secretion, divine consciousness, the Christ within, the tree of life, the Kundalini, Atman. These things are not just philosophy. This is spiritual anatomy. And once we start to understand our divine design, we will no longer bend to systems that dishonor it. First step. Second step, reclaiming the energetic body. Restoration begins in the unseen. The chakra system must be understood, not as abstract symbols, but as energy centers that affect thought, affect emotion, affect health, affect behavior. The sacred secretion, the biochemical process that mirrors spiritual awakening, must be reintroduced to human consciousness. The aura and the electromagnetic field must be restored to common knowledge so we understand why environments and people affects us. This, what I'm speaking here, this is the science of spirit, the blueprint of embodiment. Third thing, balancing masculine and feminine energies. And I've said in a piece before that this is more than male and female. The current crisis of humanity is also a crisis of energetic imbalances. We have exalted masculine logic while suppressing the feminine wisdom. We have elevated dominance over nurturing, hierarchy over harmony. To restore wholeness, we must allow men to feel again and allow women to lead. We must bring balance back into our homes, into our schools, into governance. The war that we need to heal is that war within. So we can stop projecting this imbalance onto the world. Fourth factor. We got to rebuild systems from consciousness, not from the ignorant position we were in before. Each system must be rerouted in universal law and human design. Education must teach energy, must teach consciousness, empathy, creativity. Health must treat the entire being, body, mind, spirit. Politics must move from control to cooperation and co-creation. Economics must honor sustainability, must honor reciprocity, and the actual well-being of all. We cannot heal with the same mind that created the problem. We must bring forth a new consciousness. Another factor that is necessary is the essence of community. We must recognize the sacredness of community as sacred ground. We must understand the meaning and function of this. Isolation is a lie. We heal in relationships. We grow in relationships. We develop in relationships, in connection, in communal elevation. We must restore local wisdom keepers, the elders and healers, to their rightful place. We must create sacred circles of learning, for listening and building. We must understand that transformation spreads soul to soul, not just screen to screen. We are the nervous system of the collective. When we awaken, the body of humanity begins to heal. Finally, we have to shift from knowledge to embodiment, from just cognitive to the actual. This path is not about accumulating ideas. It's about activating truth. It's about becoming. And we must become what we know. We must walk in spiritual law. We must live from the soul, act in love, and create with good intention. Because the world that we long for is not built in protest, it is built in frequency. And when we reclaim that frequency, when we embody the divine human, we don't change. We don't just change the system. We become the new one. Let me conclude this. The awakening is now. This presentation was never meant to just be a message. It is a mirror, a movement, and a moment in time where that which was hidden and buried begins to rise again. The world will not change because we shouted louder. It will not heal because we had the biggest protests. It will transform because we remember, we reclaim what we are. This is the age of the divine human, not a superhuman, not a perfect human, but a whole human, spiritually aware, psychologically integrated, cosmically connected. So let this be your invitation to question everything, to walk courageously into the mystery, to build not from fear, but from frequency. Because the future we are waiting for is waiting on us, not to arrive, but to awaken. This agenda would form the basis of season 2 in the path of the Audacious Rebel. So if you have not subscribed yet, you can do so now. If you have not clicked on that notification bell, you can do so now. And get ready for the divine human remembering what we are. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you in episode 2, season 2, sorry. Have a blessed one. Namaste. Audacious Rebel.